From WOWT6, this is Heartland Focus.
Hello, good morning, and I'm Tim Clark, your host. It's good to be back. It's been a while since we've aired the show due to COVID-19, and so it's good to be back. Just celebrated a birthday yesterday, and so I'm just feeling good, feeling strong, and in the midst of all this craziness that's going on. But I want to jump right in because we have a very important guest, Dr. Jeffrey Gold, Chancellor, UNMC here in Nebraska. Chancellor Gold, welcome to Heartland Focus.
Thanks, Tim. It's great to be with you today.
Well, hey, I appreciate you taking the time in the midst of really some serious situations that's in front of us, and it's called COVID-19. But as a person in leadership, you're dealing with that, but you're dealing with also, you got to deal with other things that's coming up in terms of those other things that always going to be in front of us. And so thank you, your staff, for what you guys are doing to make a difference in Nebraska and the impact that you're having. It's just unbelievable, the pressure points that's been put on your system and the staff and individuals. So for that, gratitude and thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. We're very privileged. We're surrounded by great leaders and great frontline staff who, as we like to say, serious medicine and extraordinary care. And, the ability to provide that care in good times and in tough times like now is what really makes the difference to the community. So thanks for those kind words, and I'll share them.
Yes. And it's almost kind of like Nebraska. It's game day. I mean, game day is every day, as Johnny Rogers would say, but it really is. And so appreciate that. So let's talk about really, I think, what's on the minds and hearts of people. One, in terms of just condolences to all of the folks that have lost loved ones due to COVID-19. But now that we have this vaccine, people they're anxious. They want to, how do I get it? Some folks are saying, should I take it? And risk factor. Talk a little bit about that, Chancellor Gold, and maybe some things that may calm the nerves and anxiety of people taking the vaccine.
Well, I think it's important for the audience to understand that there are multiple different vaccine products that are under development, and two that have been officially approved under what's called emergency use authorization by the Food and Drug Administration. And of course, the two that are approved, one is manufactured by Pfizer, a large, well-respected manufacturer of pharmaceuticals, and the other by a 10-year-old company called Moderna, who's been doing research in the area of vaccine development for more than a decade. And then there are probably, not exaggerating, worldwide, another 55 or 60 other different types of vaccines in various stages of development and testing across the world. And they're in multiple different categories. The two that are now approved, the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccine, are very similar. They're both mRNA or messenger RNA vaccines. And just to be crystal clear, they have gone through every single approval step that the Food and Drug Administration of the United States would use for any vaccine product. And so what has accelerated this has been the type of vaccine that was developed and the fact that these companies, in this case, Pfizer and Moderna, were incentivized to ramp up production before the approval by the Food and Drug Administration would occur. So normally, Tim, as you might imagine, if you were running one of these companies, you would probably wait until after approval before starting to ramp up to produce millions, if not billions, of doses of a vaccine. But given the urgency of this, the federal government said to these companies in the so-called Warp Speed project, we will hold you harmless. If you ramp up manufacturing and you don't make it through the clinical trials, we'll hold you harmless. So go ahead and start to build manufacturing sites, buy little bottles and labels and all of that kind of stuff that's necessary to manufacture and ship product. But from a safety and from an efficacy point of view, these two products, and there are several others in the pipeline for which we will have data in the near future, hopefully within a month or two. But these two products have efficacy rates that are so high that they're almost unheard of. As a matter of fact, if you look at typical flu vaccine, it's about 60 to 65% effective every year. These two vaccine products are both more than 90% effective. So
Wow.
if we want to put a halt to the transmission of COVID-19 and to try to restore our lives to as near normal as possible, we're going to have to do it through the use of these widespread vaccines. And these two are, hopefully the rest will be as effective, but these are remarkably effective products.
That's awesome. And when you think in terms of just the goal, I mean, what are we anticipating really to where the saturation for us to reach that level of herd immunity? Talk a little bit about that, because the importance, I know, of just not only having the vaccine, but we got to get it injected in people.
And not only that, many of these products, including the Moderna and the Pfizer product, require 2 injections, either
right.
3 or 4 weeks apart, depending upon which one you get, to get to that 90% efficacy. And so you're absolutely right. We've got to get to this level of so-called herd immunity. And while it's not 100% clear what the goal has to be, it's at least 70% of the population at risk has to be immunized. Others say, Dr. Fauci recently said he thought that number was going to be closer to 90%.
Wow.
And that's a biological determination based on the transmission pattern of the virus itself. And what he's responding to is that these new strains that have been identified in Great Britain and most recently in South Africa are transmissible at a much higher rate. That is to say, they're somewhere between 50 and 70% more transmissible than the strains that we've been dealing with previously. They're now been identified in multiple parts of the country, from California to Florida to Texas and other areas as well. I'm sure it's just a matter of time before we identify the first cases of these new strains here in Nebraska. And so whether it's 70% or whether it's 90%, there's no question we've got to get as much vaccine out of the freezer and out of the fridge into the arms of Nebraskans, and as quickly as we can possibly do it.
Yeah. Are you comfortable kind of where we're at, or can you maybe share in terms of what you would like to see, particularly for Nebraska, in terms of what you just talked about? And how do we fast track and try to get as many people as possible vaccinated?
Yeah, so the way this is being done across the country is through a phasing or a staging approach. And in the phase 1, we're talking about the frontline healthcare workers, those people that are caring for patients with COVID on a day in and day out basis. And we're talking about the long-term care facilities, meaning the nursing homes and convalescent homes and other such facilities where we have people living in congregate care, as we call it, because about 40% of all of the 350,000 deaths that has occurred in the United States since this pandemic began have occurred in these long-term care facilities.
Wow.
Phase 1B, the second phase of this, will be essential workers and individuals more than 75 years of age. And then phase 1C, which is just before we get to the general population, will be people 65 to 75 and people with what we call the comorbidities, meaning diabetes, heart disease, lung disease, cancer, et cetera, those diseases that give them an increased risk for COVID. Because as we know, a lot of the young people can get COVID. They can have minimal or no symptoms. They can transmit it. But it basically acts like a bad case of the flu or a heavy cold or something of that nature. But put that into a 75-year-old, or
Yeah.
somebody recovering from cancer or heart disease. And you're talking about hospitalization, ICU, ventilators, and a very significant chance of dying.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is all about making sure that we get this into the arms of people in a way that we protect the most vulnerable.
And one of the other concerns, Chancellor Gold, is, maxing out our hospitals in terms of just really putting too much pressure. Where are we at in Nebraska, particularly the things that you have control of and responsibility for? And then how might the public help? Because there's some things, do I need to go to the emergency room, or when do I activate a sense of urgency that I need to be cared for by a medical professional?
Well, let me answer both those questions one at a time, if I may.
Yeah, absolutely.
The first one was around hospital capacity.
Yeah.
So in late November, I believe November 27th or 29th, we peaked out statewide at about 980 some odd hospitalized patients, 60% of every intensive care unit patient. We nearly maxed out access to our ICUs across the state, and I'm talking rural and urban communities across Nebraska. Since that time, we have fallen down significantly to the low to mid 500s. So we've had days that we're at about 500. I think today we were at 524 as of 6 a.m. this morning, hospitalized patients across Nebraska. And what was 60% of our ICU care has fallen to about 35% of our ICU care, which is really important, Tim, because if you think of it, people are still having strokes and heart attacks, and people are unfortunately still having motor vehicle accidents and
That's
other
right.
things,
It
slipping
keeps
and
coming.
falling on the ice. And so we need to have healthcare resources for all of those folks as well. And so, we're in a much better place than we were. Now, having said that, we have not yet determined whether there's been any effect of the Christmas and New Year's holidays that we just went through,
Right.
and whether social gatherings and people not following all of the so-called NPIs, the non-pharmacologic interventions, have really caused us to see a major turnaround, because we're tracking very carefully what's going on in California and in Texas and in Arizona, and they're in crisis mode. They're in, really very, very difficult situations where there was just a recent piece in one of the media that said that ambulances were waiting 7 hours in line to get a patient into an emergency room, which is, you think about it, if, your family or mine were having a heart attack or a stroke, to be in an ambulance for 7 hours, that's a death
Not
sentence.
good. Absolutely.
In many regards. Second question is, what can our folks do? Not let our guard down. We need to wear our masks. We need to practice social physical distancing. We need to use all that hand sanitizer. We need to avoid gatherings. And most importantly, if we're ill or if we're not sure if we're ill, that's the time to put a call into your local clinic, to your healthcare professional, to somebody to give you advice as to where and how to get tested and to what to do and not do to minimize the chance of spreading the disease. Because, you think about it, we peaked out at over 120 cases per day per 100,000 population here back in November, but we're still at about 50 per 100,000 population per day, which is a very, very significant number. So there's plenty of COVID running around our rural and urban communities. And so we cannot let our guard down. I carry my mask and wear it all the time.
Yeah.
And I think that we need to be sure that we encourage that. And I see Nebraskans doing it. When I go out to shop for groceries, or if I need to go to the pharmacy or something like that, I see everybody wearing a mask, maintaining that distance at the checkout, and all of the things that they need to do, and we just can't stop doing that.
And what do you
so
say?
Important.
What do you say, Chancellor Gold? The individuals they don't believe this will prevent or stop the spread, and I don't know if they're taking it light in terms of just, hey, this thing is not real. How do we nudge them or poke them to understand the value of this, and that this is not attacking our civil liberties and the freedom of rights to kind of choose and all these kind of things. This is about life or death as I see it.
Yes, sir. This is about life and death. You know, the early on, particularly in the smaller communities that hadn't seen any cases, you know, there was a good degree of denial as to whether this was even real or whether it was or it being exaggerated. But there are almost no communities left, rural and urban, in the state of Nebraska that haven't had individuals, particularly in older age, pass away, be hospitalized, end up on a ventilator as a result of COVID. You know, I just had one of my closest friends, lives in the Boston area, just passed away in the last 24 hours from COVID. Otherwise, completely healthy physician, working hard, and was hospitalized, and several days later passed away. I've got parents of countless friends and children of countless friends that have ended up hospitalized in critical care as a direct result of this. This is not something that's been manufactured or exaggerated, but this is something that's very real. And unfortunately, on a national level, you know, I hope Nebraska does better, but on a national level, the next 4 to 8 weeks is going to be very cold and very difficult, given all the travel and all the social gatherings that occurred over the holidays. Now, I'm hoping against hope that Nebraska does better than the rest of the country, but, you know, we could end up back where we were in November, and, you know, that would be in a very, very difficult situation for us here, particularly if we started to look like LA County or other parts of the country that is so significantly affected right now. So this is a time to, you know, keep up our strength. You know, I like to call it Nebraska strong. And in a way that we know what we have to do, and we all have to do our part, not only to protect ourselves, but to protect each other.
Yeah, it's such a sneaky, silent, disease or virus that just like you were saying, it sneaks upon us. And as people are watching this, Chancellor Gold, as we wrap up this segment, what would you leave them with in terms of just the hope? People are tired. I mean, they're exhausted. They got to wear this thing. How do we give them the fourth quarter 2-minute drill? Hey, we got to hang in there. We got to hang in there.
Well, you're right on, Tim, and I'm tired. And it's been a really long ride for the Med Center. It's been a long ride for our frontline staff. And we've had countless families have lost loved ones over this period of time. Our staff is exhausted across all of the healthcare systems of the state and our nation. But these vaccines that are coming out now are the light at the end of the tunnel. We know what it's going to take to get them into the arms of Nebraskans, and we just have to hold on, use that mask, maintain that social distancing, and when your turn comes to get vaccinated, please raise your hand. I promise you, when my turn comes, I will raise my hand as well.
Absolutely. And for the record, I will raise my hand as well. And I know there's been a lot of concern, particularly people of color, the African-American community, having some reluctancy in terms of taking that vaccine. And I think it's so important, institutions, organizations like yourself, grassroots organizations, lead with facts and to really try to give more reassurance that this is the right thing to do. A whole lot of folks will die if you choose not to take that vaccine.
And people that we all know and we all love.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, hey, Chancellor Gold, again, thank you for taking the time, and really thank you and your staff for the work, the labor of love, the commitment and passion that you guys are displaying during this time. And for that, man, gratitude and thank you. And I would love to have you come back and give updates as we try to get through this insidious virus called COVID-19.
Anytime, Tim. It's an honor and a pleasure to be with you. And, you know, we're all in this big family together. We've got to take care of each other on this journey. And I'm very confident that we will.
Yeah. And two, man, I drive by UNMC. I'm just amazed of the growth and what's happening there. That's not just, you know, national, but it's world class. The research, cancer center, and then other projects. I want to have you come on just to talk about where you at and where you guys are going. From what I
absolutely, that would be a great conversation.
Yeah, you know, it's from my good friend that we share, Michael Yanni. Every once in a while, I hear a little bit. I don't want to give it all, but I just really so appreciative that we have people like Gail and Michael Yanni that's been so significant in the work and so passionate about making a difference in Nebraska.
Well, that's what it takes. You know, this is a community that deeply cares about each other, that wants to be sure they build a solid future for the generations to come. That's why I'm so sure we're going to get through this, Tim, and that we're going to come out the other end better and stronger, and more confident and better prepared.
Yes, we can. Thank you, Chancellor Gold. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're gonna visit with someone, a daughter that just lost their mom due to COVID-19. So stay with me. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Heartland Focus. Hey, now, you know, as Chancellor Gold, we talked about just this virus is real. It's touching and affecting so many lives right here in the Heartland. And joining me now is Kara Clark. Just lost her mom, Prudence Waters, and they need some help. They need our help. And so I asked her to come on. I know during this most difficult time. First of all, Kara, my condolences to you and the family for the loss of your mom. And I know it's difficult to live through something like this. And so talk to us a little bit about really what was so special about your mom. I can see her energy in her photo there, but talk, what was that special connection? Talk about that a little bit.
So, I mean, she was always out and looking for who to help and to care for. I mean, there's four of us. She had four girls, and we were pretty much all she really, you know what I mean, had, you know what I mean? And it's just really a tough time. I mean, she had 3 grandkids, and they were all actually a week apart, and that was like her everything. And she was actually a time in her life right now where she was kind of settling down and things like that. And she was just a kind person. She always pushed to help people, and you know what I mean? And she always had an answer for everything. And she always had a smile on her face all the time. And she was one of those that you could always call and look up to and figure out anything. And it's just crazy to see that COVID really had an effect on us in our life. And I didn't really, honestly, myself, really take it as much serious as it is now, that it had an effect on my mom and us and me and my sisters and things like that. And it's definitely really, it's hard, you know what I mean? So
yeah. What is one thing that you will take from her to keep her life and legacy with you and alive?
Well, I mean, always just being able to be a person that somebody can look up to and just help others, you know what I mean? Help the community, help the elderly. I mean, she was always working with people with disabilities and people that, you know what I mean, had special needs. And I'm actually currently right now working with her client that she, you know what I mean, left behind as well, that was actually living in the home. So that's something that I want to keep and stand on, you know what I mean, for her and support her on that. I mean, she worked hard. Her career was big for her, and that's how she helped others as well. And I just want to be more, I want to help the community as well, like she did. And things like that as well.
Well, that's awesome. Well, we're running out of time, so if people want to reach out and help, we put you started a GoFundMe campaign, so they have that, but also they can send checks to this address. You guys set up a bank account with Pinnacle, I believe, and so they just make the check out to Desiree Waters, and the address is there, and put in the memo Prudence Waters Funeral Fund, and then also we have the Facebook in terms of GoFundMe as well.
Yes.
So Kiera, I'm out of time, but I just know that we want to support you, and I think there's so many people out there, and I think that's where this whole thing of love thy neighbor and really the village have to come together to help each other out. I'm out of time. And so, hey, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Heartland Focus. Make today the beginning of your best year yet. Do your part. Do your part. Be good to yourself. Health first. It makes it so much easier to take care of other people when you take care of yourself. I'm out. Till next time, Tim Clark. Let's go get it.